Do you struggle with anxiety? Do you feel overwhelmed when something happens to you? I know that's how I felt when my husband came home and my hands were in the dishwater and I was preparing for the day, and he said, "Honey, they're laying everyone off." Have you experienced that? Have you felt your heart sink? For me, I knew that my children were ages 6, 4, 2, and newborn. And I was already overwhelmed. I knew that I couldn't just leave them and go to work. It didn't even make sense. Someone needed to care for these children. And in my overwhelmed state, I remembered that just the week before I had been in my husband's workplace. You see, we've been in pastoral ministry all of our lives, but there comes times and seasons when you're in transition between that assignment. Well, during that time, my husband has always been a hard worker, and he had picked up this extra job, and I had gone to visit him. And as I went to visit him, I remember saying to God, "God, my husband has been created as a pastor. God, open up a door, show us what you're doing." And here I was, just a little while later, and I realized with my hands in the dishwater that God was answering my prayer. So by His grace, I was able to turn around and say, "Honey, it must mean promotions around the corner." Well, you can be a person of faith one moment, and then the next moment you are so scared. Oh, I know that you've gone through times like that of wondering, is God going to provide for you? Wondering, what should you do? Wondering, not being able to control the economy or what happens to your husband, or being anxious about other things, and how to learn to trust God and to truly walk in faith. Well, it's a journey, isn't it? And as you talk about this issue of anxiety and learning to walk in God's peace, I want to read just a couple things that come from this chapter about anxiety. I hope that this is a time that really helps set you free. Well, worry frustrates and steals your peace. Fretting inflames a situation with anger. Anxiety and stress lead to all types of illness. The temptation to turn to addictions increases in times of stress. Peace leads to joy and productivity in life. Being still in God's presence and trusting Him transforms your perspective. Those who make God their refuge will walk in peace. I love that. There's a truth that we have to take a hold of, even when the lies try to push us down. And lies are something that we have control over. So these lies of anxiety, that anxiety lies to you and points to the quick fixes or counterfeit comforts. You know, are there things in your life right now that you're turning to relieve your stress rather than turning to God? What is it? Is it food? Is it shopping? Is it Netflix? Letting one Netflix go to the next and all that time is wasted? Anxiety can trap you in this self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. You can get in a rut and be pushed down by your anxious thoughts, and your anxious thoughts will lead to anxious feelings. The enemy is the author of anxiety. Whereas the truth of peace, peace trusts God to fulfill His promise. Peace anchors its hope in God. Peace meditates on and magnifies God's word. Peace brings God's perspective. God's presence always brings peace. You know, prayer is a key to overcoming anxiety. And even in this situation, I remember the next morning not being so much a woman of faith and going out very early and praying. And my prayer time turned into a complaining session. Have you ever done that? And in fact, if you come out of a time of prayer and feel more anxious than when you went in, then somehow you're not exchanging your anxiety for his peace. Well, I was walking, I was talking, I was complaining, and I was giving God a whole list of things we needed. And at the end of the list, I just kind of threw up my hands and said, God, we need groceries. And here's one thing that he did that I'll never forget. An acquaintance at noon that day came in with 4 bags of groceries. She didn't know what had just happened to my husband. She didn't know the anxious feelings that were controlling me, but God did. And God answered that simple prayer, and you know, it built faith in me. And you probably have stories like that when you were anxious and you turned to God and he helped you and you came through. During times that your mind is being plagued with anxiety, turn to remembering and thanking God for all the times that he came through for you. And you will sense peace flood your heart, your mind, your soul, and keep you steady as you move through life, led by the Prince of Peace.